Have you ever seen pictures or ads in the media that make you feel bad about how you look? The media often shows us these unrealistic images that can affect our confidence and negatively impact our mental health. But engaging in movement for joy and talking about these unrealistic standards, how they make us feel, and shifting our viewpoint helps us learn to feel comfortable and confident in our own skin. Welcome to Normalize the Conversation. I'm your host, Francesca Reicheter, and today I'm joined by Nana Crawford, a dance fitness instructor empowering women to love themselves through the joy movement. In this episode, I talked with Nana about body confidence, the impact of messaging from the media, the influence of your support system, and why talking about all of it matters. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am very excited for our conversation, but before we begin, I just want to check in. How are you really?
I'm okay. And I think it's okay to say that. Usually when I say I'm okay, I haven't really processed how I'm feeling, but I think I'm not at the top scale, which I would say is like joyous and bouncy and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not at the bottom scale. I'm kind of floating in the middle and I have my moments, but today has been actually a really, really good day for me. So that's why I feel like today is a good, okay day.
I totally relate to that. Right now, I'm like adjusting to a new schedule, and it was something I was really looking forward to, but then kind of figuring out how I fit into life in a different role. I was half student, half caregiver. Now I'm kind of like a full-time caregiver, but also a 25-year-old and trying to figure out it's only 2 months. To me, it's like the biggest deal in the world. But figuring out where I fit in, it feels really overwhelming. So it's like, don't feel like super excited right now, but like I don't feel super low. I'm just like,
Yeah.
good, but it's
Yeah.
not amazing right now. And that's okay.
Yes. We're both okay. I love that. I love that for us that we're both
I
okay.
love it for us too. It's so important to normalize that we don't have to be like perfect all the time. And it doesn't have to be either happy or sad. And I think for
Yeah.
me, that was something I really struggled with for a long time. It was like it was all or nothing. I was either
Mm,
having a great day or a terrible day. And to learn that could exist in the middle is huge.
yeah. And I think also like when it depends on the time of day that someone asks me that question, right? And I think that always has to be taken into consideration. If you ask me in the morning and I haven't had a cup of tea, I'm not okay. But if you ask me if you ask me straight after I've had lunch, I'm great. I'm great. I'm great. My belly is full. Life is great. If you ask me if I'm okay just after I've missed my bus, I'm not okay. So I think it's just like, for me, it's just about processing. Anytime someone asks me that question, I actually think about where I am in time in that day before I answer it so that I can give the most honest answer possible in terms of, well, actually, right now I'm okay, or right now I'm feeling a little bit low, or right now I'm feeling good. So I do love to add some context for myself as well, because it just helps me process. It helps me process my emotions, but it also helps me process that if I'm not okay, it's not the end of the day. You know, there's still tomorrow or next week, and I don't have to be so stuck in this moment. I can just kind of acknowledge this moment and move forward.
Yeah, it's so true depending on where we are in the day and recognizing. I had a teacher, I'm like going off track now. I had a teacher who last semester said, it's really important to know that you're okay in this moment, even if you don't feel like you're okay. If you are safe in this present moment and you're just
Mm,
okay and bring it back to that present moment, it helps kind of reframe that overwhelming, everything feels too much
yeah.
mindset. And that's something I've been working on a lot lately. So that's kind of reminded me of that when it's
Mhm.
like in this moment, I'm okay. There's still a little bit more of the day, right? There's still more that can change that can hopefully make
Yeah.
us feel a little bit better and hopefully something I can do for myself. So that's something I've been slowly learning. So I love how you just brought that back for me because it's so important to recognize in the moment and what those triggers are. Like you said, for
Yeah.
you, it's tea, for me, coffee. When my grandma tries to talk to me before coffee, she's like, good morning. And I'm like, it will be in 10 minutes. Hold on. Coffee first. Then let's
Right?
talk.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I think my kids really know that, and they know kind of when to ask me the right question. So they will never ask me about sweets or treats or anything if I haven't had a cup of tea. They'll ask me practical things, practical things. Have you seen my shoes? Have you done this? But as soon as I've had a cup of tea or breakfast, all of a sudden it's, Mummy, can we get some ice cream later? And then I'll be like, oh, actually, yeah, why not? That sounds like a great, it's because they've caught me in the right frame of mind.
Smart.
I know, very smart.
Smart. My grandma needs to adapt to that because she would be getting a lot better breakfast. Like some mornings, like I do make her like homemade meals. I really try. But there's some mornings where she talks to me before the coffee and I'm like, here's oatmeal.
Yeah.
Versus I've had the coffee. Like this morning was pancakes. I had coffee before she woke up. It was great.
Okay. Oatmeal day, pancake days.
When do you talk to me? I swear I'm a great granddaughter. I just have these moments. Okay, so on topic for today. We connected maybe like a month ago, and
Yeah.
I had seen your Instagram and I loved how you were combining kind of movement with body confidence. And that's something for me I've always really struggled with was the messaging the media told me of how I should look and how I should feel based on how I look. And learning to express myself is honestly terrifying. And I didn't know how to express myself. And then everyone's like figuring out what clothes they want to wear and how they want their hair and they make like all these things, how they want to move, how they want to dance. And I always felt so terrified of like, where do I fit in? And so what I loved about your page was it's just this confidence through movement, through dance, through discovering yourself, through these affirmations, instead of like in my head where it's terrified of trying to figure out who you are and feeling stuck by this pressure of what I think that society thinks I should be.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that I love when people get that from my page and they really get a sense of that, because for me it's also really validating for my journey as well, like my journey to get there. And then the fact that that comes across just really like reaffirms that I have put in the work to work on myself, and that working on myself has allowed others to almost give themselves permission to work on themselves, right? And to say to themselves, well, actually, if she can get to this place where she feels confident about her body, confident about moving her body, then there's hope for me. And that's what I want everyone to just have, that little bit of hope. And if it's one post that does that for them, then I have not just even succeeded in life, but I've helped someone move forward. And that honestly, it really means a lot to me when people say that, because I'm just like, I get that. I totally relate to feeling that. And I think that I felt so many pressures at so many different stages of my life. From like as soon as I hit puberty, I was seeing all these messages, thinking all these things. And then you go to kind of like school and you're surrounded by other girls' bodies and you're kind of constantly questioning whether you should look like them, but you look like yourself. And, you know, then you kind of grow up and then you're in your 20s. And that is probably, for me, that was the most confusing time for me in my 20s. And that was the time that I would say that my weight probably fluctuated the most as well. And also how I felt about my body, like kind of really went from love, power, like all of this to I hate myself, you know, and it was on that scale. And then I had kids, and that was a experience that I was not really prepared for. You can read the books, you can watch the movies, you can, you know, talk to other parents, but you never really can prepare for it because it's nothing that your body has gone through before. So going through that twice was a real experience for me in terms of accepting that my body was changing and that I wasn't in control of it. And that was terrifying. That's a really terrifying experience when you're trying to love yourself, but you're changing. You know, you're changing at a rate that you can't really explain.
Yeah. And For me, a lot of my body image and the way I feel about my body comes down to control. So
Mm,
I can control how much I work out or how many
yeah,
calories I take in.
yeah.
And I imagine when your body's changing and you can't kind of utilize that sense of control, like that's how I do it. I internalize and go into my body. And
Mm,
apparently, I like to make myself feel very sick to feel like I'm in control. And I imagine when your body's changing and you don't have that sense of control over it at all. And it's one of the very few things that we often feel like we have control over can
mm,
feel overwhelming. I mean, that's how when life feels overwhelming for me, that's how I find my sense of control. Not healthy,
yeah.
should not be doing it that way. Wish I could get to that point where, I mean, I recognize it. I'm like, oh, I need to stop. But if I can do it before, recognize it before, it would be great.
So you're right. And I think that like it's something that I really wish as we grew up, we learned more of from our peers, from the people around us, is that sometimes we can't control what happens to our bodies, and that's okay. You know, we can control things like what we eat, we can control like workouts, how much we work out, but sometimes all those things might not result in the thing that you think is going to happen. You know, and I think that we live in this, especially I see it a lot on Instagram where you have things like what I eat in a day to make sure that I have, you know, a flat abs, or what I eat in a day to get rid of this, or don't eat this. Don't, you know, the amount of times I actually remember just after I had my son, I remember seeing an article that said something like, don't eat after 8 p.m. If you eat after 8 p.m., you're going to put on so much weight, all this kind of stuff. So here's me, you know, I had like a 6 month old. I was already going in kind of a vulnerable place. I see this article that says, don't eat after 8 p.m. I look at the time and it's 8:05, and I'm just like, I've just committed, like, I've committed, like, I've read this article and it's told me not to eat after 8 p.m. And now I feel really bad about myself. And from there, I kind of took it to heart, and and I remember like sometimes my husband would come home late from like work or something, and it might be like 7:45, and he'll be like, okay, let's have dinner. And I'll be like, I've only got 15 minutes because if I eat after 8 p.m., I'm just going to put on weight. And, you know, he was trying to understand kind of like where this has come from. But for me, because it was written down in a fitness magazine, I thought it was the rule. And I thought that that was the rule. I have to abide by it. And there is so much pressure for us as women, because I don't think the media helps us love ourselves and helps us accept ourselves for who we are, and helps us champion each other and champion ourselves as we exist as well.
Yeah, it goes to show how powerful the media is too, and how it really dictates everything we think about ourselves and believe about ourselves. I know there's this one like reels, TikToks that come up on my feed a lot, and it's how to
Mm.
eat under 1,200 calories a day. And
Mm.
that's so I've been diagnosed with anorexia multiple times in my life. So things
Mhm.
like that is really not great for me because my mind will go straight to how do I starve myself?
Yeah.
And I caught myself, honestly, it was last night. I caught myself, I was eating and I was like, how many calories do I think this is? Because one of those videos had popped up on my screen earlier that day, trying to think about how many calories was my lunch. And I had like quinoa with beans and broccoli.
Mm.
And I'm like, maybe I ate too much at lunch. And it was like, I hadn't eaten that much at all during the day. I was eating like sweet potato noodles with vegetables for
Mm.
dinner. And I was like panicking that I was eating too much. And that could
Yeah.
very easily trigger me to not eat. And now that I hear you say it, when those videos pop up, it really does impact the way I completely think about myself and influence my behaviors if I don't
Mm.
catch it soon enough.
Yeah. And I think the hardest thing is reprogramming, right? It's
Yeah.
reprogramming your brain to see those things and not take them as literal facts, and to also kind of disassociate yourself from it so that you don't think that this is the rule. And I think often when you see it and it comes from someone who is like claims to be like a fitness professional or this and that, you think, okay, well, they must know what they're talking about because they're telling you XYZ. So then you start to think, you know, because you grow up learning that, you know, doctors and professionals are in their field, they're experts, they know what they're talking about. And it's like, well, actually, sometimes they don't know what they're talking about because they're not you. They're not you. They're not consuming the food that you're consuming. They're not walking in your shoes. They're not living your life. They're not waking up, they're not making oatmeal for your grandma. They're not doing the things that you're doing. So to offer advice sometimes that can be quite damaging is something that really needs to be regulated. And it does worry me a bit for the future, especially for my daughter who is 9. And, she, like so many of her friends, are already on social media and kind of consuming that. And she's already asking questions about, like, she's like, oh, do you think I'm going to be really fat when I'm older? And I'm just like, I think you're going to be great when you're older. I think whatever it is that you're going to be is going to be you. And that's what I'm looking forward to the most, as your mum, seeing what you become and who you become and how you kind of challenge yourself and challenge others and break boundaries and sleep, whatever it is, I was like, I'm really looking forward to what that is. And I just don't want her to get consumed with the words fat and thin. And, I just and it's already started and she's only 9.
The connotation of the words too, and the way we
Yeah.
I heard someone say, people love to comment on people's bodies, and I don't know why, and the size of people's bodies and any time it changes. And I heard someone say, like, they were describing someone as skinny and then someone as healthy. And I was like, yeah. And I immediately went to, oh my goodness, where do I fall in and which one's better? And it's like kind of panicking. And it's just the way you take the word. And it's so difficult because we use words that maybe we think are like the good words, but we're using them maybe in a negative way. And then we're taking more, and it's really, really hard because the way you receive it and the way you internalize it, and then you use that to define your self-worth. And this all comes from these messages we're constantly receiving it at the age of 9, before we even have a chance to love ourselves and figure out who we are and who we want to be in any way, shape, or form. We're already being taught all these words under different connotations and trying to make sense of it all.
Yeah. And I think you're so right. And I remember, like, when my daughter sort of like said to me, she was like, oh, I overheard someone at school saying that when they grow up, they don't want to be fat. And I said to her, okay, when you heard that, what did you think? And she was like, oh, well, I was just really confused because I don't see the problem in someone being fat. If someone is big, then they're big. And if someone is small, then they're small. And so she was like, I don't really understand why she would think that that's a problem. And I love that. I love that she had that moment of realization, and the work that, like, both me and my husband have been doing into getting her to understand body shapes, body sizes, and to kind of accept people for who they are and the choices that they make as well. But it was just really interesting that she could pick up on that tone, that she could pick up on the fact that this other girl had said that they don't want to be fat when they're older as a negative thing. Whereas, for my daughter, she was like, well, if I'm fat, then I'm just like, that will be great. If I'm thin, then that will be great. If I'm tall, then that will be great because I can reach things that you can't reach, mummy, and I'm just like, don't rub it in, but yeah, that's great. So I'm glad that message is not only getting across, like, on my Instagram, but also within the house as well. Like, that's probably one of the things that I'm probably the most proud of, that's coming through with my daughter, and she's feeling that sense of security within herself. And she's also confident enough to ask those questions and to put them towards me when she hears something and she's not quite sure how to process it, or whether it's positive or negative. She'll ask and be like, well, why would someone say something like this? And we need to get more people to do that. We need to get more people to ask those questions of each other and of themselves as well. Like, not just kids, but adults. I think a lot of adults, like those people who make these comments about people's bodies, I sometimes want to say to them, like, can you just stop? And now imagine saying that out loud in a room full of people with all different body sizes. You would never say that out loud to someone in their face. So what on earth gives you the right to post it on their feed and to kind of come at them like that? It just, and I get comments like that a lot as well. not just on my page, but sometimes in my DMs, and people will message me and say that, you know, there was one comment in particular where someone said that they loved what I was doing. And then they were like, have you considered losing a bit more weight because then it would just be more attractive? And I was like, okay, that's a very backhanded compliment if I've ever heard one. But also, what is attractiveness? Like, what is that? I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for me, you know? So the fact that you think it's okay to come into my space and tell me that, A, you love what I'm doing, but then tell me that I need to lose weight to make myself more appealing. More appealing to who? The only person I need to please is myself. And the only person that I really need to have that validation from is myself. I need to be able to look in the mirror and be really proud of the person that's looking back at me. And every day I have to make sure that I'm reminding myself and reminding myself of that relationship that I'm building with myself and with my body. And comments like that are just not helpful. So if anyone's listening that's making comments like that, stop it. Like, stop.
There's no reason to ever comment on someone's body, and it makes me so mad. There's this one of my friends who she'll constantly post on her story the comments that people will post, and she does amazing work. And and I can't believe that what people will notice and say, it's not, oh my goodness, look at you changing the world, look at you making such an impact. It's making fun of her body size and trying to take her down instead of, it makes me so mad when that's how we define someone's self-worth. And we look at them as your worth as much as the scale.
Yeah.
And it's so hard because these are the messages that a lot of people are receiving young, but I love to hear that your daughter is not receiving those messages. And because you're one of those moms who's really showcasing, right, that body confidence and self-worth from within and self-validation. And it's so amazing to hear that a child's like, anything will be great. I just want to feel happy. And that's what it should be.
Yeah, I think her main goal now in life is just to be taller than me, just so that she can reach things that I can't reach, which I think is fine. I think she will be, because she's already 9 and she's like pretty much almost here, like head height. So she definitely will be taller than me. So I love that is her only goal in life. She's like, I want to be able to reach the top cupboard because you can't reach it. And I'm like, okay, that's great. That's great. But also I think as part of that, there are days where, and I'm sure you probably feel it as well, you're not 100% like completely in love with who you are, or, you know, you have those days where even though you've worked really hard to validate everything, it just feels very kind of murky and you're not quite sure why. So there are those days that sometimes I have a really honest conversation with her about that sometimes there will be days where you just don't quite feel in yourself, and that can be really difficult to process. And I remember, like, as I was growing up, I had so many of those days, and I think especially when you're just around people that don't look like you, don't do the same things that you do, it can be quite confusing for you when you're trying to process your emotions, even as adults, you know, when you're in a room full of people. And I remember I went on holiday to Cyprus a while back, and this is when I had the kids. And I specifically remember going to a part of the pool, and everyone was in like bikinis. They were like tanned. And I remember like my son was still really little, and I still had quite a lot of baby weight and everything. And I just felt so out of place. And I can look back now and kind of think and look at that experience and learn from it and think I shouldn't have felt out of place, because I'd only given birth, you know, not that long ago. So the fact that I was able to even get up and get myself to the pool was a win. And now I can look back at those moments that I felt low and think and use them as almost teaching moments for myself, so that when I have those moments now, I can flip it round and really try and process what is it that I'm feeling and what is it that's making me feel this way, and how can I work my way through it as well. And sometimes it's even just the littlest thing is like, well, maybe I just need to change my top. Maybe it's just the top that's making me feel a bit awkward and, it's not sitting quite right on me, and I can just put something else on and instantly feel better. So there are tiny little things that sometimes that we can change that will have the biggest impact on how we feel about ourselves. And I would love for people to explore more of those little tiny things that we can do.
It's so important to recognize it. Like, we're not going to feel 100% confident all day, every day.
Yeah.
Like, I wish maybe someone does. I wish that I could. But when I thought I had to feel 100% confident all day, every day to like myself and to love myself, I constantly like would come down on myself. Like, what's wrong with you? You're making progress. Why do you hate yourself today? What's wrong with you? And just making me feel even worse about it, and recognizing that some days I'm just might feel more insecure, and it might be about my body, it might be about my hair, it might be about my schoolwork, it might be about my
Mm.
nonprofit work, it might be about my ability to lift 3 pounds versus 5 pounds. I'm really weak. But anything could make me feel a little insecure, and that was okay, and it didn't take away any progress. It didn't take away my self-worth in any way, and like you said, there's things we can do to change. For me, I found that I really prefer things that are high neck. I love
Okay.
high neck, I love a turtleneck, and a lot of girls like to wear that low cut, and I tried, and then I really just didn't feel comfortable, and I didn't like the way I looked, and then I started, like, hating on myself, and when I realized that I mean, it's like 100 degrees right now in Florida. I'm in long sleeves with a high neck, but that makes me feel better. So
Yeah.
why am I gonna sit here and listen to the media and what other people are dressing and posting and what makes them feel confident and think that I have to feel confident in that when I can find things that make me feel confident, that make me feel good, so that I'm not sitting here bashing on myself. It's finding those
Yes.
small changes that we can make that work for us, not what's working for everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I definitely think that we need to spend more time with ourselves, right? I don't actually think that we spend a lot of time with ourselves because we get so engrossed in how we are with other people, how we are at work, how we are when we're studying, when we're with our friends, our families, when I'm with my kids, my husband, I'm constantly surrounded by people most of the time. So having that time where you're not surrounded by anyone, you don't have anyone to talk to or anything, but all you have to do is sit with your own thoughts is probably the most terrifying thing that you can ever do because you start thinking and you're like, why am I thinking this way? Like, whose voice is that? But people need to do it. More people need to do it so that you can really be happy in your own company and you can kind of love just being by yourself. Like now I love being by myself. And when I have moments where I am with myself, I don't find it really awkward and strange. I just actually kind of appreciate it that I have this moment to myself to just kind of, just be. And even if it's just walking to get my kids from school and it's just me, I will just appreciate those 10 minutes that I have by myself and kind of just use that moment to either reflect on something good that's happened or, make my imaginary to-do list that I know for a fact I'm never going to do. But I'll still make it. I'll make the to-do list, but it will never happen. But I know that I've accepted that now. I've accepted that my imaginary to-do lists never happen, and I've put less pressure on myself to actually do them. I just call them to do, but maybe don't. That's what's going to happen.
It's so important to learn how to be with ourselves because I was always looking for validation from other people. I mean, I'm guilty
Mhm.
of this all the time. I was writing a lot of blogs about this recently because I'm like, well, if my friends don't want to hang out with me and I'm alone, what's wrong with me? And I really
Mm.
start like beating down on myself. And I feel so boring when I'm alone. I don't know what to do. And then I'm just like laying in bed watching Netflix and telling myself that that's wrong and I shouldn't be doing that when sometimes it's fun to just rest and binge watch a good show. Grey's
Mhm.
Anatomy, maybe. Um,
Love
and it's
Grace.
nice. I love Grey's Anatomy. And it's really nice to stop like hating yourself when you do something for yourself that makes you feel good, whether it's going for a run by yourself or a walk or I don't know, just disconnecting and not hating yourself or feeling disconnected. That's a big
Yeah.
thing for me, is when I put my phone away and I'm like checking to see if other people are messaging me and how many texts am I going to have. And then I have no text and I'm like, oh, I was so disconnected. And now I feel disconnected from everyone, instead of like, I had time for me and that's great. And I will connect with people when I have time to connect with people, when they have time to connect with me. And none of that impacts my self-worth.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you know what? The greatest thing that I probably ever did for myself recently was to really tell myself I don't need to post content every day. I don't need to be on social media every day. I don't actually need to be present in this digital space every day. I need to be present in the space that I'm at physically. And there was one, I think especially like last year, I decided that I was just going to take like 2 weeks. I was going to challenge myself to taking 2 weeks from not posting, and the amount of anxiety I was having before doing it, because I was thinking, but what if I miss this? And what if I don't see this? And what if I miss a trending sound and come back and everyone's talking about this trending sound, but I haven't heard it? And because I work in social media, what's going to happen? You know, all this kind of stuff. And I did it and nothing changed. Nothing changed. If anything, I was so much happier. I was happier. I was calmer. I was more connected with myself and disconnected with that world. And now I've put less pressure on myself to post. Like, I'll have moments where I post loads, and there are moments where I just don't feel like posting. And rather than get so internal with my thoughts and think, well, if you don't post, people aren't going to see you, you're going to lose followers, this, and this. I just think to myself, well, actually, if I don't post, then I'm taking time to rest and I'm working on myself. And that's what people appreciate about you, the fact that you do these things for yourself. So rather than looking at it as in I'm doing this for them, I have to look at it as in I'm doing it for me, because that's the most important part of it.
Yeah. Learning that you can do stuff for you. And social media, I think, is a really big one, where it's like we feel so obligated to be on all the time and be
Yeah.
this image of what people expect us to be. And I know for me, something someone said to me recently that really, really kind of made me feel overwhelmed was that I'm not relatable. And I was like, okay, what
What?
does that mean? Right? I think
What
I'm
does that
so
mean?
relatable because
Yeah.
I'm so honest,
What do they mean? I'm so intrigued by that.
right? Because I guess it makes sense in some capacity, where if you look at from an external point of view, like I'm a caregiver for my grandmother with Alzheimer's, but I'm also a student in another state across the country, kind of doing
Mm.
both, and then being an entrepreneur, nonprofit. Like, it is many different roles that may seem really difficult to relate to. A
Okay.
25-year-old doing that, see that. And I try to be so honest online and show up very authentically and vulnerably. But then I felt
Mhm.
so pressured to have to post every single thing I was doing all the time to show that
Right.
I'm a human being. And I'm like, I am a human being who's overwhelmed all the time. And now I'm feeling stressed about posting that I'm eating something, or that I am struggling to eat today, or that
Yeah.
I am going for a walk and just watching TV I'm not actually on right now. And like all this pressure of what content to put out there and what people are seeing and how you want them to see you. And when you can't disconnect from that for even a second without this fear, it becomes so overwhelming. I had to, and this is so funny because it's not like a, so my time limit on my phone for social media is 5 hours a day per app,
Okay.
which, I mean, realistically, I should not be on each app for 5 hours
All right. No,
anyways,
that's,
but
yeah, that's quite a lot.
that's my time limit. Um, but starting to put those time limits into place where it's like, okay, I shouldn't be spending half of my day worried about what other people are thinking about me and what they're posting, what I should be
Mm.
posting. Is someone commenting? Is someone messaging? It just became so much, and I was so worried about what other people thought of me. I stopped thinking about what I think of me, and I kind of like what all I get to do, and I like that. Sometimes I can feel like I am Superwoman, and then some days feel like I am a 5-year-old trying to figure out what I wanna do in life and where I am. And I just, when my focus became everyone else's opinion, I was like, "Who am I?"
Yeah. See, that there is the most relatable thing, because
Yeah.
you are just trying to navigate, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're doing this, this, and this, and that, you're still trying to navigate everything and you're trying to make sense of it all. And we're all trying to do that. We're all trying to make sense of our lives, ourselves, our situations, our goals, our relationships, you know. And I think that the more that we are honest with ourselves and honest with each other when things like that aren't quite going to plan, or when you just don't have it figured out, you know, is kind of, I feel like we would be in a much better place if more of us had those conversations where we were just like, you know what, I don't actually really know what I'm going to do or where I'm going to be in 5 years time, or where I think that, you know, my business is going to go, or, you know, all that kind of, like, I have a sense of what I want it to do, but right now I kind of just want to eat my sandwich, you know, like, or whatever it is that in that moment, I think that just you saying that you're just trying to figure things out is relatable to me. And we're both, you know, we have different lives, we have different responsibilities, but I'm also trying to just figure things out. And that's what makes you so relatable. So I think for someone to say you're not relatable is, they're not relatable. You're totally relatable.
Right? I'm so honest with every like insecurity that I have. Like, I post it so vulnerably all the time. I was like, I feel like I'm relatable. This is something that I've been spiraling about. It's fine. But it's all about recognizing, and this is something you said to me when we first connected that I loved, and I wrote it down. You don't have to figure it out all at once. And I felt like I had to have everything figured out of who I want to be. And this goes back to me. It goes back to that moment, like freshman year of high school, when they're like, where do you want to go to college? And who do you want to be? And what do you want your major to be? And I remember like feeling so overwhelmed in that moment. And I had this idea I wanted to be Oprah Winfrey. I still want to be Oprah Winfrey. Like, I always wanted to have a talk show and be inspirational and help people. That was something I admired watching when I was younger. So that's what I said. And they're like, well, it's not a real career. And I'm like, it's Oprah's career. Oprah's career is being Oprah.
Yeah.
Like, it's a career. But I remember immediately, like, I didn't have everything figured out, and other students knew that they wanted to go to Harvard and be a lawyer. Like, they knew exactly where they wanted to go and what they wanted to do. And I didn't know. And I was like, oh my goodness, I need to figure my whole life out right now. And I'm a 14-year-old just trying to figure out, like, I don't know what socks to wear that day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you don't have to have it all figured out. I think if you have some things figured out, and those things can be just little things, you know, just even deciding what you want to eat for breakfast, or what socks you want to put on the day and stuff like that. Every time you make one of those smaller decisions, it's such a big impact in your brain in terms of like, and that validation is so important as well. So you have to acknowledge that even though it might seem like a very small choice that you've made, it's a bigger choice in the fact that you've been able to make it. So, you know, I think that sometimes we often think that the choices that we make have to be grand choices, right? They have to be big life decisions. They have to make huge impact on our lives. But actually, it could literally just be a case of, you know, do I want to walk to work today, or maybe I want to get the bus to work today? And that's, again, okay to make that, to focus on that and have that choice as, you know, the one thing that you focus on. So every day now I make a conscious effort to try and limit the amount of choices that I'm making all the time, because otherwise I will never get anything done if I'm constantly thinking about the things and the decisions that I need to make and what I need to do. And even like later today, I've got a class and I was just in my head trying to think about, oh my gosh, what choreo am I going to do? What this, what this, what that? And then my son just said to me really randomly, well, what song do you want to do? And I was like, oh, actually, yeah, maybe I should start with that. And I was like, actually, so then I picked a song. And now that the song's been picked, the class has kind of come to me. So again, it's just making sure that I just have that one question that I can answer and it can fall into place. And then other decisions can kind of come from that. And you'll often find that like that can, just having that as a tool can be used in so many aspects of your life. And that can not just be applied to the decisions that you're making about what you're going to eat and stuff, but also the decisions that you make about how you feel about yourself and what you choose to acknowledge. and what you choose to kind of, if you see something, like swiping it away, hiding, deleting, all that kind of stuff. You have the power to do that, and you have the power to control how you do that. And I think people often kind of forget that just because something is being shown to you doesn't mean you need to see it. It doesn't mean you need to consume it. You can just remove it.
Yes. Yes. And that's one thing that I've had to learn with social media is like I start following these accounts that make me feel really insecure. And I'm like, well, it's social media. And in some ways, it is social media and the algorithm bringing it to me, but it's also the accounts I'm following influencing the algorithm that makes this come to me. And it's how often I want to be online, how often I want to be reloading my feed, how many people I'm following and who I'm following, what content they show. And then also in my personal life, right? With my friends, which friends make me feel confident and excited and uplifted? Which friends make me feel maybe insecure and anxious and not really good? And being able to recognize all these things and set different types of boundaries, whether it's time, whether it's relational, whether it's just a boundary with myself that when I recognize these thoughts happening, I'm going to do something. Maybe it's
Yeah.
I'm going to take a moment and just take some deep breaths. Maybe I'm going to get out a journal and start writing down ways to reframe it, finding small things I can do and not minimizing all those small things and thinking like, oh, well, that was just too small. It doesn't really count. I mean, you're figuring things out as you go and you're learning what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what choices you enjoy making, who you want to be with. And I don't think you ever have everything figured out. You just kind of go with the flow and you learn something new about yourself. And something might be great for you today and then not as great for you tomorrow. And you get to explore it all, which is exciting, maybe
Yeah.
overwhelming, definitely
Overwhelming for
part of
sure.
life.
But definitely exciting. And we have to embrace that kind of unknown, the
Yeah.
things that you don't quite know about yourself that you learn. And then you're just like, oh, I always thought I was a very patient person. My husband has told me otherwise. So that's something that I thought I was probably the most patient person ever. He was like, really? He was like, did anyone validate that for you? Or was that something you validated for yourself? He was like, you're probably the opposite, as in like the least patient person. But he's like, but what I love about that is that you make us make decisions quicker about certain things. So he was like, embrace the fact that you think that you're patient, but you're not. And I remember when he told me that, I was really like, am I not a patient? Do I need to be more patient? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? But then at the same time, it's like, well, actually, because I'm maybe not the most patient person, things do happen a lot quicker, because I can just get things done because I don't want to sit around and wait. But now I can have a balance where I need to learn patience and I need to have that restraint and I can challenge myself on being more patient, and accepting the fact that there's something about me that's different and something that I'm unaware of, something that I can work on if I want to. Again, it's your decision if you want to work on those things. Maybe I want to be an impatient person for the rest of my life. I don't know. But I will get every day it changes for me. So it depends what's happening. But it's just knowing that I'm in control of how I feel about myself, how I feel about the decisions that I make, how I feel about the people around me. Like you said, that, surround yourself with people that lift you up, that, bring out the best in you. And when you recognize that there are some people that don't do that, it's okay to make the decision to step away and to distance yourself from those people, because ultimately you're not going to be good for yourself if you're constantly trying to people please and constantly trying to fit in to whatever it is that you think you should be fitting into.
Yes. And first of all, that reality check from someone else is always so great. My friends recently, I was like, oh, I'm so easygoing. And they're like, you're easygoing because when you say, let's listen to Taylor Swift, we all just agree. So you don't keep going on and on about it. Like you're easygoing because we all just give in right away. And I'm like, well, I like that for us. Um,
I love that.
love it. Easy for us all. Easy going. There you go. Number one. I really love how much we laugh together. This is great. Number two, it's making that decision of, do I want to be easygoing? And what does that mean for me? And not using it as, like you said, should I be more patient? Am I being too impatient? Not. having to internalize everything
Mm,
and make it like it's a bad thing. These are different. I know what I want, right? Reframing it to strength-based language. I know what I want and I'm not afraid to ask for it.
yeah.
Should I sometimes be more flexible? Probably. But it's learning to kind of reframe it to that strength-based language and then also about who we connect with. Like again, what we've both been saying. The other day my friend picked me up to go to Costco with her to go grocery shopping. We came back with pillows, so we were really effective. But and I had called
Random. It's
her, but I had called her because someone else, another friend, had made me feel really insecure about where I'm at in life.
Hmm.
And I just knew that she's the kind of person who was gonna uplift me and validate me and tell me, like, "You do you, and I'm proud of you." And being able to recognize what friends are great for what, and knowing that you
Yeah.
deserve people who are those cheerleaders in your corner who make you feel important no matter where you are in your journey is so
Yeah.
important.
And I also feel like you do need a little bit of the kind of like reality checkers that
Yeah.
I call them, because, sometimes it's nice. Well, for me personally, sometimes I can be on this kind of cloud of, my own thoughts, my own world, everything. So sometimes it's nice for someone to just be like, hey, can you
Knock you
just,
down a little.
yeah. So, just come down. Most of the time it's my husband. And I think that that's what works for us in our relationship, that balance that we have, that, he feels very open to just be like, no, that's not what's happening right now. Or no, you're not patient at all. Far from, so, but equally, he's also sometimes that person that I can, he'll know what I need when I need it. So if I need a reality check, he'll give me a reality check. If I need that kind of reassurance that the choices that I've made are the right ones for me, he'll remind me of how far I've come in my own journey, and and say that every one of those choices you've made has led you to this point. So just have that confidence and belief in yourself and don't doubt yourself. But also, yeah, you don't like aubergines, so stop trying to order aubergines because you don't like them, like eggplants. Stop trying to order stuff like that because you don't like it, even though you tell yourself, I'm going to try something new, and then you order something and it's not to your liking. So I think it's balance, right? It's all about balance, and sometimes the balance might not be equal, it might be completely off the scale. But every day it's going to be shifting and changing, and you have to kind of learn to kind of move with that and accept that and deal with it. And also, like, I would say, just be aware of it as well. Be aware of it and not shy away from it. Like I was saying earlier, that like the last couple of months for me have been really heavy in terms of grief, and rather than trying to distance myself from it, I've allowed myself to feel it, and to feel it whenever it's come. So rather than thinking, today I'm going to wake up and I'm going to cry because today, I'm going to, rather than thinking that, I will have my days where everything is going really great, but there'll just be this one moment where I think of something and it makes me really sad. And rather than trying to kind of stop myself from feeling that, I just let myself feel it in that moment, and I let myself process those emotions. And we should do more of that. We should allow ourselves to just process whatever we're feeling when we're feeling it, and just kind of, rather than trying to stop ourselves from feeling those emotions, we should just feel them, allow yourself to feel them, good or bad. I don't actually believe that there are any bad emotions. I just think emotions are emotions, and you should just feel them, deal with them, process them, and learn how you can move on with them, however they make you feel.
Yes, learning to live with them and not beat yourself up for them, not feel like you're wrong to have emotions or that you have to control when you can have them. And
Mm,
to have someone in your life where they can be that reality checker, but also that supporter that encourages you. I mean, it's amazing when you have people in your life who can be both and make you
yeah.
feel like bringing you down a little bit, helping you realize, like, I really don't like this. And no matter how many times I try it, I'm not going to like it. Instead of sitting there trying to convince yourself, being able to give you that reality check, but then also support you in what you do like and what you do want to do is so important because it helps us feel more confident in who we are. And it doesn't feel like we're in it all alone. Nana, you've been absolutely incredible. As we are wrapping up, time has gone by really fast, by the way. As we are wrapping up, what's one piece of advice you would like to give our listeners?
I would probably say my one piece of advice is for people to spend more time alone with themselves.
Yeah.
Spend more time by yourself, but don't force yourself into those situations. Just find a moment where you could think to yourself, actually, this is a really great moment for me to just be alone. And it doesn't have to be at a standstill. You don't have to be sitting down and just think, I'm just going to sit here alone. It can be at any point that, even when you're with a crowd of people, there are times where you can just be in your thoughts. And I would love for more people to spend time being alone and getting to know themselves, love themselves in those moments, and just reassuring themselves and validating themselves. And I think when you're alone in that moment, just tell yourself you are worthy of love, you're worthy of respect, you're worthy of being seen, being present, and being in that moment. And just accept it for that moment, and then carry on with the rest of the day, and you'll be so much.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.